saw something all too rare, a true sense of national unity. Unity and resilience, the capacity to recover and repair in the face of trauma. Unity and service.
In New York, he will join the families who lost loved ones. Former Presidents Bush and Obama will be here too. The ceremony will pause 6 times to acknowledge the exact moments America was under attack that day.
The 20th anniversary of 9/11 has taken on a greater significance since US troops left Afghanistan for good. But here, people are remembering where they were that day, what they lost, and where they now stand as a country.
Charles Wolfe will be at the commemorations. The last time he saw his Swansea-born wife, Catherine, was when she left for work. 40 minutes later, the first plane would hit the North Tower.
We fell in love without even knowing each other. We just met, and in a minute or two, it was like all over. And there's something in our souls that's it's like we knew each other in past lives or something. She'd say, let's have a meal with a nice bottle of wine.
He has campaigned for fairer compensation for families of the nearly 3,000 victims. The impact of that day will never diminish for the families. But today, 20 years to the day, President Biden hopes to get America past the 9/11 era, moving it from memory to history. Nomia Iqbal, BBC News, New York.
67 of the people killed in the attacks were British, and many of their relatives will attend a service today at the September 11 Memorial Garden in London.
Let's go to our reporter Graham Satchell, who's there for us this morning. Graham, this is a very important day for the families, obviously, a chance for them to remember and have their thoughts. The Queen has sent a message in the last few minutes. Tell us a little more.
That's right, Charlie. We've just had that actually in the last hour or so. The Queen has sent a message direct to the US President, Joe Biden, and in it she says, "My thoughts and prayers and those of my family and the entire nation remain with the victims, survivors and families affected, as well as the first responders and rescue workers called to duty. It reminds me that as we honour those who lost their lives, we also pay tribute to the resilience and determination of the communities who joined together to rebuild." It is a message of conciliation that the Queen has sent this morning, and an indication, I think, of the world coming together to remember a day 20 years ago that changed the whole world. There will be global events happening. The main one, of course, will be in New York, where more than 2,000 people were killed in the Twin Towers. Here in London, in Grosvenor Square, I'm stood next to the September the 11th Memorial that was dedicated in 2003. It is a hugely significant place for the 67 families of the British people who died 20 years ago, because many of them don't have graves or gravestones that they can visit. There is a half-ton steel girder from the Twin Towers that's buried under the ground here, preserved in resin, and the names of the 67 on a plaque on the wall. Those names will be read out today in a private ceremony, and then white roses will be laid, 67 of them. You may be able to see at the base of the memorial there. There is already a bouquet of white roses that has arrived overnight, we think, from Downing Street, and a handwritten note from the Prime Minister which says, "In remembrance of those taken from us on 9/11 and in defiance of those who would have us live in fear." So a defiant tone from the Prime Minister today, and the debate about September the 11th has raged pretty much since it happened 20 years ago. Is the world a safer place today? I think that debate will continue, but today, for the families here, it is a day to remember lost loved ones.
Graham, for the moment, thank you.
Time now is 7 minutes past 9. The Duke of York's lawyers have not yet responded to claims that he's been served with legal papers relating to claims of sexual abuse.
According to court documents filed in New York, lawyers for Virginia Giuffre say they left the papers for Prince Andrew with police officers at Windsor's Royal Lodge.
The Duke of York has always strongly denied the accusations and says he has no recollection of meeting Miss Giuffre. Our royal correspondent Sarah Campbell has the details.
Virginia Giuffre, then known as Virginia Roberts. She alleges that when she was 17, she was sexually assaulted by Prince Andrew. He categorically denies the claims. Ms Giuffre launched her civil case against him last month, and as part of the initial process, papers must be served on the defendant. Her lawyers believe this has now been done. A court document describes how papers were apparently left with a police officer at the Prince's home, Royal Lodge in Windsor, on the 27th of August. What isn't yet clear is whether the Prince's legal team agree the papers have been served in the correct way to allow the case to proceed. During a BBC interview in 2019 with the BBC's Emily Maitlis, Prince Andrew denied the allegations levelled at him by Ms Giuffre.
I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady. None whatsoever.
You don't remember meeting her?
No.
He's now in Balmoral, Scotland. On Monday afternoon in New York, a telephone conference is scheduled to take place between the judge in this case and legal teams, which should provide further detail as to whether and how this case will proceed. Sarah Campbell, BBC News.
A senior medic says GPs in England are finding it increasingly hard to guarantee safe care as the number of doctors falls and demand surges. Professor Martin Marshall, who's chair of the Royal College of GPs, told The Guardian that complex consultations and the vaccination programme are adding to the strain on family doctors. The government has pledged to recruit 6,000 more GPs by 2025.
Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer will outline his vision for social care reform today, with the plans expected to include a new deal for care workers and unpaid carers.
Our political correspondent Ione Wells is in our London newsroom. Ione, good morning to you. The pressure has been on, hasn't it, on the Labour Party to actually say what it would do as it's been criticising the government's plans.
That's right, Naga. I mean, we know, of course, that Labour opposed Boris Johnson's plans to raise national insurance taxes on workers and employers to fund both social care but also to tackle the NHS backlog. They say it's going to hit younger and lower earners more, which is a criticism that Sir Keir Starmer is likely to repeat today. But as ever in politics, if you're going to oppose something, it's a bit harder to do that unless you provide your alternative. And that's something that Labour's been under pressure to do, not just from those in government, but also from people within his own party, with senior Labour figures like the Labour Mayor for Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, saying that criticising the Tories' plan alone just won't cut it. So today we are getting a little bit more detail about what Labour would do instead. Now, Sir Keir Starmer is likely to outline that he would propose a series of kind of wealth taxes, so taxes on landlords, but also those who earn a large part of their income from sort of property portfolios, buying and selling large amounts of shares and stocks as well. That he's also likely to set out a bit more detail about what they would propose in terms of their reforms for social care, with an emphasis on prevention, but also more care within people's homes rather than in care homes as well. Now, we don't yet have a huge amount of detail of what exactly some of these wealth taxes might look in practice and how much they might potentially raise in income as well. We know that the Prime Minister Boris Johnson has already criticised calls for raising taxes on the profits made from selling assets, saying that this wouldn't be enough necessarily to raise the amount needed to fund social care reform. But I think this is certainly going to be a key political battleground now for some time to come, with some Tories already nervous that their tax increase on national insurance is going to hit them politically when workers start paying hundreds more in taxes every year when those kick in. But Labour also still very much under pressure, I think, to provide a bit more detail about how their alternative sums add up.
Indeed, Ione, thanks so much, Ione Wells there.
At least 2 people have been killed in a tornado which has swept across the Italian island of Panettiere. 9 others were injured, 4 critically, as cars overturned and bruised from buildings on the island torn off. The island lies between Sicily and Tunisia. Emergency workers planning to helicopter the wounded to hospitals on Sicily once weather conditions improve.
Disney has said the rest of its films this year will screen exclusively in cinemas before being made available for streaming.
Yes, the company has been experimenting during the pandemic with releasing some films on its streaming platform Disney+. But its new plan is being seen as a sign of growing confidence that film lovers are returning to cinemas in large numbers.
Now, Chris has the weather for us this morning. Chris, morning to you. That's another gorgeous picture. You had one earlier, I think, from County Durham.
Yes, I did. I've been looking at the sunrise